Welcome back, warriors of the mind. And if you're new here, this is where ancient wisdom meets modern understanding, where philosophy, psychology, and neuroscience merge to forge a mind that is unshakable. Every video in this series is another step along the way. In the Book of Earth, we learned foundation, discipline, purpose, and structure. In the Book of Water, we learned flow, clarity, rhythm, and adaptability. Now we reach the Book of Fire, the element of action, of motion turned to power, where stillness transforms into strategy, and understanding becomes victory. Musashi wrote these teachings not from peace, but from experience, from battle, from fire itself. He survived more than 60 duels without defeat, not because he sought violence, but because he mastered the energy that fuels it. He mastered fire, not as destruction, but as controlled will. 400 years later, that same fire burns in all of us. It's the spark that moves us forward, the drive to act when others hesitate, the courage to create when others fear. In the Book of Fire, Musashi wrote of engagement, the moment when all training becomes instinct, when clarity must ignite into motion. But Musashi never spoke in abstractions. He lived every principle he taught, and on a rain-soaked night, long before his words were carved into legend, he revealed exactly what fire looks like in the hands of a master. Like a flash of light, a katana slices through the moonlit rain. A single movement, pure, precise, unstoppable. And in that instant, a samurai falls. His body folds onto the soaked grass like a deck of cards, scattering as it meets the earth. The victor does not gloat. He does not even breathe heavier. Because this strike was not born from rage. It was born from clarity. To the untrained eye, it looks like chaos, a random act of violence. But to the one who holds the sword, it is mathematics. It is rhythm. It is inevitable. His name was Miyamoto Musashi, a man whose legend burned across the battlefields of ancient Japan. 60 duels, 0 defeats. And yet his greatest weapon was not his sword. It was his mind. Musashi once wrote, "When you attain the way of strategy, there will not be one thing you cannot see." What he meant was simple. True mastery is not in reacting to the world, but in setting it alight with intention. That is the lesson of the Book of Fire, where knowledge becomes motion and thought becomes the strike. Fire to Musashi was never about destruction. It was about decisive energy. The moment when everything you've learned, every movement, every breath, every ounce of focus, ignites into action. In neuroscience, this is called activation energy, the threshold where the brain commits. When adrenaline and dopamine surge together, your body enters a state of readiness, the pre-action zone. The world slows down and you move. Musashi called this the rhythm of fire, the ability to see the opening before it appears. It's not instinct, it's trained instinct. When preparation meets courage and fear dissolves into movement. Because fire does not ask permission to burn. It simply burns. And so too must you when the moment demands it. Lesson 1. The flame of intention. Every fire begins with a spark, a single thought, a single choice. For Musashi, that spark was intention. Before his sword ever moved, the battle was already decided, because in his mind, the strike had already happened. He wrote, "The way of the warrior is resolute acceptance of death." It sounds grim, but it isn't. It means total commitment. When the decision is made, fear no longer speaks. There is only clarity. There is only movement. In the modern world, we hesitate, we overthink, we calculate, stall, and negotiate with our own fear. But neuroscience shows that hesitation itself drains energy. Each moment of doubt increases activity in the amygdala, the brain's threat center, and weakens the prefrontal cortex where logic and control live. Musashi understood this long before science gave it a name. He knew that the moment between knowing and doing was where warriors fell. The cure? Intention. Pure, unwavering, embodied intention. In psychology, this is called implementation intent, the act of deciding when and how you will act before the challenge arrives. Your mind rehearses the moment. Your body learns the rhythm. And when the time comes, you move without hesitation. This is the brain's readiness potential. The electrical spark that fires milliseconds before conscious thought. It's your body saying, I am already in motion. That's what Musashi trained for. Not the swing of the sword, but the space before the swing. That invisible instant where mind becomes motion. To him, intention was everything. Because without it, technique is empty. Without it, courage has no anchor. He wrote, "You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. And that path always begins with the first deliberate step." In neuroscience, we call this activation energy. The small burst of effort needed to begin. Once you act, dopamine takes over, rewarding movement and fueling momentum. This is why the first step is always the hardest, but also the most powerful. Because once the flame of intention is lit, the world begins to move around it. Musashi's fire teaches that your energy must serve purpose, that the body and mind must align in one rhythm, a decisive harmony where thought and motion become one. When you strike, you do not try, you are. When you choose, you do not hope, you commit. Because hesitation kills more dreams than failure ever could. The warrior does not wait for courage. He creates it through motion. And once that fire is lit, every doubt becomes fuel. Lesson 2. The heat of conflict. The rain is heavier now. Blades clash under a sky split by lightning. Each strike rings through the night, not chaos, but rhythm. A deadly conversation between two minds that already know how this ends. To an outsider, it looks frantic, unpredictable. But Musashi once wrote, "When you are fighting, remember to control your opponent's rhythm." He didn't just mean the sword's rhythm. He meant the rhythm of fear, because in battle, fear is the loudest weapon. It steals breath. It blinds focus. It drowns the mind beneath the noise of the body. Yet Musashi stood unshaken, not because he lacked fear, but because he commanded it. In neuroscience, this is called sympathetic control, the ability to master your own adrenaline. When danger rises, your brain floods the body with epinephrine, increasing your heart rate, sharpening your senses, preparing you to fight or flee. But here's the irony of it all. The same surge that can save you can also destroy you. If your breathing quickens uncontrollably, the amygdala takes over, and the prefrontal cortex, the seat of judgment, goes dark. That's panic. That's the moment most people lose. Musashi understood this centuries before modern science. He trained not only his hands, but his breath. He moved through chaos as though it were silence. Because when you control the rhythm of your body, you control the rhythm of the fight. Modern soldiers call it combat breathing. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. This simple rhythm lowers heart rate, calms the amygdala, and restores clarity. In that state, time slows, perception sharpens. The mind becomes flame without smoke. Musashi's fire wasn't rage. It was precision born from chaos. He wrote, "When your spirit is calm and the opponent's is confused, your fire will prevail." This is neural dominance. When your calm mind disrupts another's panic, when your rhythm becomes the stronger force in the fight. Every punch, every clash, every heartbeat in sync, not rushing, not stalling, just moving, with the rhythm of inevitability. In life, our battles are rarely fought with swords. But the chaos feels the same. Deadlines, arguments, losses, pressure, each one an enemy trying to steal your rhythm. When anger rises, breathe. When stress ignites, slow down, because emotion is fire. And without discipline, it consumes the house it was meant to warm. Musashi's teaching is not to extinguish the flame, but to become its master, to stand in the heat, unmoved, unshaken, unburned. Lesson 3. Destruction as renewal. The battle fades, the sound of steel gives way to silence. The fire has done its work. Where moments ago there was heat and chaos, now there is stillness and the scent of smoke. What remains is not ruin, but revelation. Musashi wrote, "When you know the way broadly, you will see it in all things." To him, fire was not destruction for its own sake. It was transformation. Through burning, form is released from structure. Through death, something purer takes shape. He believed that a warrior must not cling to what was, for to cling is to resist change, and to resist change is to die before death itself. In his fire there was acceptance, not passivity, but understanding. The understanding that creation and destruction are not opposites, but mirrors. Modern neuroscience now confirms what Musashi intuited centuries ago, that the mind renews itself through adversity. When the familiar breaks apart, the brain adapts. Neurons form new pathways, new connections, new strength. This is neuroplasticity, the ability to reshape, to learn again, to begin anew. The flames that seem to consume are in truth clearing the path for evolution. Fire was Musashi's teacher in impermanence. It taught that mastery is not found in preservation, but in constant renewal. He wrote, "Do not collect weapons or practice only one art. You must understand the way from all directions. The warrior who fears loss has already lost. The one who accepts loss is already free." This is the paradox of fire. It destroys to reveal what cannot be destroyed. The false self burns away. The essence remains. Even in modern psychology, this truth endures. Growth requires friction. Resilience is not built in comfort, but in challenge. Fire is the ultimate test of authenticity. It asks only one question. What within you is real enough to survive the burning? Musashi's answer was simple. The way itself. The man, the weapon, the moment, all may fade. But the way remains, eternal and unconsumed. Lesson 4. The fire within. At the center of every flame lies stillness. The chaos of heat hides a calm, unbroken core. This, Musashi taught, is the essence of fire. Fury may flare, adrenaline may surge. But beneath the noise, the true warrior is quiet. He wrote, "The spirit of fire is fierce, but within its flame there must be calm. In battle, this calm is control. In life, it is direction. Fire must burn with purpose, for uncontrolled energy consumes itself." Modern neuroscience calls this state flow, a harmony of focus and action where time dissolves and self becomes movement. In this state, dopamine, norepinephrine, and endorphins unite, forging clarity, speed, and effortless execution. Musashi lived in this rhythm. To outsiders, it seemed supernatural, but it was simply discipline transformed into instinct. He moved as if the body had no weight, as though thought and action were the same breath. Because to him they were. He once said, "You must understand that there is more than one rhythm to life. The untrained move in fits and starts, pushed by emotion, pulled by fear. The trained move with inevitability. Fire at its highest form no longer destroys, it illuminates. The sword no longer divides, it reveals. and the warrior no longer fights, he simply is. When fire burns steady within, the world bends around its light. This is Musashi's final lesson of the flame. Master your energy, and you master yourself. Because fire is not something you wield, it is something you become. The final lesson, the path beyond fire. The fire has burned its course. The battlefield lies silent. Smoke drifts across the dawn. What was forged in chaos now stands purified. A tempered blade, a sharpened mind, a spirit unbroken. Musashi wrote, "When you know the rhythm of the world, you can strike without hesitation." He was not only speaking of battle, he was speaking of life itself, of the moment when fear falls silent and purpose becomes movement. Through earth, we learned foundation, discipline, and resolve. Through water, we learned flow, clarity, and perception. Through fire, we learned transformation, the courage to act and the will to endure. These are not lessons of war. They are lessons of becoming, each element refining the self, each battle burning away illusion. Fire teaches us that strength is not loud. It is silent. It is steady. It is controlled. When your fire burns without smoke, you are no longer ruled by impulse or fear. You act with intention. You live with direction. But Musashi's path does not end in flame. Beyond fire lies wind. He wrote, "In the Book of Wind, I speak of the ways of other schools and of perceiving what cannot be seen. If fire is the mastery of action, then wind is the mastery of understanding. It is the unseen movement, the breath that shifts the arrow's flight, the intuition that sees before the eyes do. Wind is awareness, perception refined through stillness. It is the calm that follows fire, the clarity that remains when all else has burned away. And so, as this chapter closes, remember this. Fire is not the end of mastery. It is the passage, the purification that reveals what lies beyond. To know the way fully, you must move beyond the flame and learn to see the unseen. That is the lesson of the next chapter, the Book of Wind. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching. Come and continue the journey with me. The wind awaits. I'll see you in the next one.